Sarah and I decided we needed a break from city life. We were tired of the hustle and bustle, and after some digging, we found this capsule hotel deep in the woods of Oregon. The pictures looked cool. Modern, minimalist pods nestled among the trees. It seemed like the perfect place for a weekend getaway, and it was cheap, which is always a plus. We arrived around 3 p.m., and the hotel looked pretty neat from the outside. There were these sleek little capsules scattered around a central lodge. The receptionist handed us our key card and pointed us toward Capsule 18. "Just follow the path through the woods. It's a short walk," she said with a smile. As we walked along the winding path, I was struck by the beauty of the woods. Sunlight filtered through the trees, casting pretty shadows on the ground. But as we got further from the lodge, a sense of unease began creeping in. The trees loomed larger, and the sounds of nature felt amplified. Birds called from the treetops, and the rustling of leaves seemed louder than it should have been. Finally, we reached our capsule, and I was relieved to see it was cozy. It had a bed, a small desk, and a window looking out into the forest. We unpacked, snapped a few pics for Instagram, and decided to go for a short hike before it got dark. The trails were well marked, and we felt confident venturing deeper into the forest. The deeper we went, the more beautiful and dense the woods became. The air was fresh, and we were surrounded by the soothing sounds of nature. However, as the daylight began to fade, the forest took on a more ominous tone. The rustling of leaves seemed to echo, and every snapping twig set us on edge. I started feeling uneasy, like we were being watched. I glanced at Sarah, who was looking around nervously. "Let's head back," I suggested. She nodded. But then I realized I didn't know which way to go. Panic set in as we wandered, trying to find our way back to the lodge. The once inviting path now felt like a maze. After what felt like forever, we finally made it back. We were sweaty and freaked out. Dinner at the lodge was surprisingly nice, a 3-course meal that included a fresh garden salad, hearty beef stew with crusty bread, and a delicious chocolate mousse for dessert. It warmed us up after our adventure and made us feel a bit more relaxed, but the earlier tension still lingered in the air. After dinner, we headed back to our capsule, hoping to forget the stress of the night. But as the sun set, a weird quiet fell over the woods. We crawled into bed, and just as we were about to drift off, I heard it, a low, guttural noise coming from outside. My heart raced. "Did you hear that?" I whispered to Sarah. She nodded, her eyes wide. At first I thought it was just an animal, maybe a bear or something, but the sound was deep, almost human, and definitely unsettling. It continued for what felt like hours, a mix of low growls and eerie moans. I tried to ignore it, but the noise was like a bad movie playing in my head. We lay there, holding each other tightly, too scared to move or even breathe loudly. The next morning, we went down for breakfast, and I decided to bring up the strange noise. A couple of guests at the lodge had heard it too, which was oddly comforting, but also terrifying. "I thought I was losing my mind," one woman said. "It sounded like something was out there, watching us." Sarah and I exchanged worried glances. After breakfast, we went for a stroll by a nearby stream, trying to shake off the weird vibes. But even sitting by the water, I felt like eyes were on us. The peaceful sound of the stream and the chirping of birds couldn't drown out the lingering sense of dread. We spent the day trying to enjoy the beauty of the forest, but the previous night's experience had tainted our mood. We explored the nearby area, visited a small waterfall, and even tried some bird watching, but the feeling of being watched never truly left us. That night, as the sun dipped below the trees, we returned to our capsule. Sarah was already on edge, and I could feel the tension in the air. After a quick shower, we snuggled into bed, hoping for a good night's sleep. We talked about leaving the next day if things didn't improve, trying to reassure each other that it was all just our imaginations. But around 10 p.m., we heard a knock on our capsule door. It was soft but persistent, sending chills down my spine. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered. I felt paralyzed with fear. The knocking continued, growing louder. I finally worked up the courage to peek outside, but there was no one there, just darkness. I opened the door slowly, and my heart pounded. The woods were silent, save for a low howl that echoed in the distance. I slammed the door shut and felt a rush of panic. "I don't think I can stay here another night," Sarah said, and I knew she was right. We huddled together, terrified, barely able to sleep. Every rustle of leaves or distant sound made us jump. We kept the lights on and took turns staying awake, our nerves frayed by the constant tension. Finally, as dawn broke, we packed our bags in a hurry and checked out. The receptionist greeted us cheerfully, asking how our stay was. We exchanged nervous glances. "It was fine," I said, forcing a smile. As we drove away from the capsule hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been lurking in those woods. The dense forest that once seemed so beautiful now felt sinister and unwelcoming. Sarah and I didn't talk much on the drive back to the city. We both felt a mix of relief and lingering unease. We promised each other that our next getaway would be somewhere far from any woods. So, if you ever think about staying in a capsule hotel in the woods, maybe think twice. It might not be the peaceful retreat you're hoping for. Sometimes, nature holds secrets that are better left undiscovered. Hey everyone, I need to share this creepy experience my friends and I had last spring. We decided to take a trip to unwind and booked a stay at this capsule hotel by a lake. The place promised tranquility and a unique stay. The reviews were mostly positive, though a few mentioned some odd occurrences. We shrugged them off, thinking people were just being dramatic. We arrived just before sunset. The hotel was sleek and modern, contrasting sharply with the natural beauty around it. The capsules were arranged in a large glass-walled structure, offering stunning views of the lake. The receptionist, a young woman with tired eyes, handed us our key cards and mumbled something about a curfew and avoiding the lake at night. We barely listened, eager to start our relaxing trip. Our capsules were small but cozy, with just enough space for a bed, a tiny desk, and our stuff. The view from our pods was amazing. We spent the evening exploring the hotel grounds, taking photos and soaking in the peaceful atmosphere. As night fell, the lake glowed under the moonlight, looking almost magical. Around 11 p.m., we returned to our capsules and settled in. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard a faint humming. At first, it was barely noticeable, but it gradually grew louder. It was eerie, like a distant machinery noise. I sat up and asked my friends if they could hear it too. They did, and it seemed to surround us. Curiosity got the best of us, so we decided to investigate. We stepped out of our capsules and walked down the dimly lit hallway. The humming persisted, leading us toward the large glass wall facing the lake. The moonlight reflecting off the water gave the lake an eerie, almost hypnotic quality. Ignoring the receptionist's warning, we left the hotel and walked down to the lake. The night air was cold, and the closer we got, the louder the humming became. Suddenly, the humming stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence. We stood there, unsure of what to do, when we noticed the water rippling despite there being no wind. Terrified, we stumbled back and ran to the hotel. We didn't stop until we were safely inside our capsules, hearts pounding. None of us slept that night, our minds replaying the encounter. The next morning, we gathered in the hotel's common area to discuss what had happened. We decided to stay, hoping to get to the bottom of this mystery. We spent the day exploring the nearby town and talking to locals. They shared that strange occurrences had been happening around the lake for years, with no clear explanation. Some thought it might be due to underground geological activity, others blamed old machinery left behind from a long-forgotten project. That night, we decided to set up a watch to see if the humming would return. Around 11 p.m., just like the previous night, the eerie melody started again. We stayed inside, observing from the safety of the glass-walled common area. Sure enough, the strange ripples appeared on the lake's surface again, synchronized with the haunting sound. One of my friends, Jake, suggested we try to find the source of the noise. Against our better judgment, we cautiously approached the lake, but kept a safe distance. Jake called out, asking what was causing the noise. The humming stopped abruptly, and a deep rumble seemed to echo from beneath the ground. We realized the noise might be coming from some kind of underground machinery or natural phenomenon. The next day, we rented a boat and searched the lake, hoping to find any clues. After hours of looking, we discovered an old, submerged structure that appeared to be part of an abandoned mining operation. We took photos and reported our findings to the local authorities, hoping they could investigate further. That night, we waited again for the humming. This time, it didn't come. The lake was silent and the oppressive feeling had lifted. We felt a sense of relief, believing we had finally found a logical explanation for the strange occurrences. We spent the rest of our stay enjoying the serene beauty of the lake, free from the unsettling presence of the mysterious humming. If you ever find yourself at a beautiful, serene lake with a capsule hotel, remember my story. Sometimes the past needs to be uncovered before the present can find peace. Stay safe and curious, but always respect the warnings. Nestled against the edge of the vast, tranquil ocean, the Pod Hotel stood as a beacon for adventurers seeking an unusual escape. Each pod, a self-contained capsule, offered stunning views of the endless horizon, promising a night of peace and serenity. Or so we thought. My wife Clara and I arrived at the Pod Hotel just as the sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. It was her birthday, and I had planned this unique getaway as a surprise. Our pod, a sleek, futuristic bubble, faced the ocean directly. The interior was minimalist, but cozy, with just enough space for a bed, a small desk, and a window that seemed to blend seamlessly with the sea outside. After settling in, we decided to explore the beach. The sand was cool under our feet, the rhythmic sound of the waves soothing. Unlike a typical beach, it was quiet and deserted, adding to the sense of intimacy and adventure. We spent the day walking along the shore, collecting seashells and enjoying the peaceful solitude. We had a picnic lunch, laughing and reminiscing about past birthdays, each of us content in the other's company. As evening fell, we gathered some driftwood and started a small campfire under the darkening sky. The warmth of the flames was a stark contrast to the cool ocean breeze. We toasted marshmallows and shared stories, the firelight casting flickering shadows on our faces. It was a perfect birthday evening, just us and the endless expanse of the ocean. Clara smiled, her eyes reflecting the firelight, as we talked about our dreams and plans for the future. Suddenly, a strange noise interrupted our conversation. It was a low, almost imperceptible hum, resonating from the ocean. We fell silent, ears straining to catch the elusive sound. It grew louder, a haunting melody that seemed to vibrate through the air and into our bones. "What is that?" Clara asked, her voice tinged with unease. I shook my head, equally baffled. The sound was unlike anything we had heard before. It wasn't the typical calls of marine life or the mechanical drone of a distant boat. It was otherworldly. Curiosity piqued, we left the warmth of the fire and walked closer to the water. The moonlight reflected off the gentle waves, creating a shimmering path that seemed to lead straight to the source of the sound. We stood there, mesmerized as the hum enveloped us, both beautiful and eerie. "It's almost like it's calling to us," Clara murmured, gripping my hand a little tighter. The noise was becoming hypnotic, lulling us into a strange sense of calm. We stood there for what felt like hours, listening to the haunting melody before finally returning to our campfire. The beach was silent except for the steady rhythm of the waves. The hum faded away, leaving us with more questions than answers. We extinguished the fire and headed back to our pod, the mystery of the sound lingering in our minds. Crawling into bed, we tried to make sense of what we had heard. The pod felt different now, almost protective, as if it were a shield against the unknown. The hum still echoed in our ears, softer now, a background lullaby as we drifted off to sleep. My dreams were vivid, filled with images of the deep sea and its hidden secrets. I dreamt of ancient creatures and lost civilizations, of underwater caverns and glittering treasures. Morning came too soon. The hum was gone, replaced by the familiar sound of waves crashing against the shore. We stepped out of our pod, the bright sunlight chasing away the remnants of the night's mystery. The beach looked the same, but it felt different, as if it held a secret only we knew. As we walked along the shore, hand in hand, we talked about the strange events of the previous night. Clara was convinced it was some sort of natural phenomenon, while I entertained the possibility of something more mysterious. We couldn't shake the feeling that the ocean had tried to communicate with us. What was it trying to say? And why only at night? Back at our pod, we packed our things, reluctant to leave. The experience had left us both intrigued and unsettled. As we loaded our bags into the car, I glanced back at the pods and the endless ocean beyond. The experience had been surreal, a blend of tranquility and the unknown. Driving away, the memories of the night before played in my mind like a haunting melody. The allure of the mysterious hum and the promise of discovering its source were too strong to ignore. I knew we would return someday, drawn back to the Pod Hotel by the ocean's enigmatic call. Until then, the memory of that night would remain with us, a haunting reminder of the secrets that lie beneath the surface of the sea. Clara looked at me, a thoughtful expression on her face. Do you think we'll ever find out what it was? I squeezed her hand and smiled. I don't know, but it's definitely a birthday we won't forget. She laughed, the sound light and free, and for a moment, the mystery of the ocean felt like a gift.